Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to pull back the curtain on the world of nonprofit organizations. But we're not just talking about charity here. Nope, we're going to put on our strategy consultant hats and really deconstruct the nonprofit, analyzing it as the complex and fascinating business model it truly is. So let's get this on the table right away. This is our core idea. You have to forget the old image of a nonprofit as just some passive group waiting for donations. Instead, I want you to think of it as a highly strategic business, one that's been engineered from the ground up, not for profit, but for a much more complex and, frankly, more interesting bottom line, creating real, measurable social impact. That's the lens we're using today. All right, so how are we going to do this? We've structured our breakdown around 4 key pillars. We'll kick things off with the fundamental value proposition, then we'll walk through its mission and identity, its operational model, the all-important rules of governance and compliance, and finally, we'll take a hard look at its strengths and challenges. It's a complete framework, and by the end, you'll really get how these organizations tick. Okay, before we jump into those pillars, we have to lay the foundation. What is a nonprofit, really? What's its core purpose, its reason for being, this value proposition? This is the bedrock. Everything else is built right on top of it. So let's start with the official definition. A nonprofit, or NPO, is set up for some kind of social benefit. Could be a hospital, a university, a food bank, you name it. The goal is always to serve the public good. And here's the critical difference. A normal company exists to generate wealth for its owners. A nonprofit exists to generate well-being for society. A totally different game. Now we're ready for our first pillar, mission and identity. And look, this is way more than just some feel-good mission statement on a website. This is about the specific legal and philosophical DNA that defines what a nonprofit is, and crucially, how it's seen by the government and by you.
You can see this perfect logical chain here. It all starts with the purpose, right? Serving the public good. Because of that purpose, the IRS grants it a very special legal status, 501c3. That status, in turn, creates this powerful incentive for you and I to donate. Our contributions are tax deductible. And the final piece of the puzzle? In exchange for doing all this good work, the organization itself doesn't have to pay income tax. It's this powerful, self-reinforcing cycle.
Okay, so we've got the identity locked in. Let's move to pillar 2, the operational model. This is the engine room. How do these organizations actually get stuff done? I mean, who does the work, and where does the money come from to make it all happen? The easiest way to think about the operational model is like a high-performance engine with 2 key parts. First, you've got the people engine, all the human capital doing the work. And second, you've got the money engine, the financial fuel that keeps the whole thing running. So let's look at each one. But before we even get to the staff, you have to understand the leadership because it's completely different from a regular business. There are no owners, no shareholders. Instead, a nonprofit is governed by a board of directors. This group holds the ultimate responsibility for steering the ship, making sure it stays true to its mission. And believe me, that creates a huge challenge because the board has to balance the needs of everyone. Donors, volunteers, the people they serve, and the public. And this really shows you that unique mix of people power in a nonprofit. On one side, you've got your paid staff, the pros, but on the other, you have the volunteers. They are, so often, the heart and soul of the organization. They're not there for a paycheck, they're there for the mission. And they provide this incredible advantage, low-cost labor. Managing this hybrid workforce is one of the toughest and most important jobs for any nonprofit leader. And now for that second tension, money. A smart nonprofit has to build a really diverse portfolio of funding. And these are the 5 main channels they pull from. Here's the thing, relying on just one of these is a total recipe for disaster. The real key to staying afloat is building a mix that can survive economic shifts and changes in what donors care about.
And check this out. This gives you a great visual of how those channels come together. A healthy nonprofit never puts all its eggs in one basket. And you can see right away, individual donors, well, they're usually the biggest piece of the pie. That reliance on public goodwill makes fundraising a constant, high-stakes game. It's exactly why building strong relationships with everyday donors is so absolutely critical.
Let's move on to our third pillar, governance and compliance. Because, having that special tax status, it comes with a lot of strings attached. This pillar is all about the strict rules, the transparency, and the legal guardrails that every single nonprofit has to live by. Okay, first, let's clear something up. People use nonprofit and not-for-profit like they're the same thing, but legally, they're totally different. A 501c3 nonprofit, the kind we're talking about, exists to serve the public.
and that's why donations are tax-deductible. A not-for-profit, like a sports club or a social club, exists to serve its own members. It's also tax-exempt, but your membership dues, not tax-deductible. It's a subtle distinction, but a really important one.
So how do we know they're actually following the rules? The main tool is this document, the Form 990. It's not a tax bill. Think of it as a mandatory annual report to the public detailing everything from revenue and expenses to top salaries. It is the absolute cornerstone of nonprofit transparency.
And this isn't just some dusty old government form. The smart nonprofits, they use their Form 990 proactively. They put it right on their website like a badge of honor, a tool to build trust. It lets any potential donor, like you, look right under the hood and see exactly how your money would be spent. In a world where people are more skeptical than ever, the Form 990 is a strategic asset.
Finally, within all these rules, there are two bright red lines you can never, ever cross. First is something called private inurement. Fancy term, simple idea. You can't use the organization's money to make its founders or staff rich. It's the cardinal sin. Second, 501c3s are strictly forbidden from engaging in political campaigning. They can't endorse candidates, period. Violating either of these can literally destroy an organization.
Okay, so we've covered the what, the how, and the rules. Now for our final pillar, a balanced, strategic look at the model itself. What are the built-in advantages of being a nonprofit, and what are the systemic headwinds they're always sailing against?
This is basically the yin and the yang of the nonprofit world. On the one hand, you have these incredible advantages, a powerful mission that motivates people, that tax-exempt status, and an army of passionate volunteers. But on the other hand, they face huge challenges. Funding is a constant roller coaster. Growing bigger is incredibly difficult. And competing for top talent against for-profit salaries is a massive struggle. Success means walking this tightrope every single day.
All right, let's bring it all home. We've deconstructed the nonprofit using our 4 pillars. Now let's put it all back together into a clear summary from the perspective of a stakeholder, which could be you as a donor, a volunteer, or just someone who's curious.
So here it is, the whole model in a nutshell. Pillar 1, the mission. That's the North Star. Pillar 2, operations. That's the engine, powered by people and money. Pillar 3, governance. That's the rudder, steering through the rules. And Pillar 4, strategy. That's the skill of the captain, balancing the advantages against the challenges. If you understand these 4 pillars, you have the toolkit to look at any nonprofit not just as a charity, but as the complex strategic organization it is.
And that brings us to one last big idea. The lines are blurring, right? For-profit companies are talking more and more about having a social mission. So we'll leave you with this question. In this new era of conscious capitalism, how does the traditional nonprofit model have to evolve? How does it need to change, to compete, to collaborate, and ultimately to lead the charge for the social impact our world so desperately needs? That's the challenge for the next generation. Thanks for joining me.